Another poor performance from this basketball team resulting in a 15-point loss to the Maryland Terrapins. JJ McCarthy, the backup quarterback for the Wolverines, runs his mouth. And is it time to point the finger at Chris Holtman? All that and more right here on Locked On Buckeyes.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Monday, February 28th in the year 2022, and today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. I would also like to thank every person out there for making Locked On Buckeyes their first listen or first watch of every single day. Ohio State's basketball team is very interesting. When you look at how the season started, look at how things have gone, the injury situation, and how Chris Holtman and these players have overcome some of the obstacles, but how they have not also overcome some of the obstacles, things are very, very interesting. Going back to last week, there was a game against Indiana. Ohio State won that game, went into overtime, and I said that might be a turning point or momentum-building moment for them going into the rest of the season. Followed that game up by a win over Illinois on the road, might I add, and they looked really good late in that game to win that one. And so I was kind of curious against Indiana, against Illinois, what will we see against Maryland? Indiana win, Illinois win. Against Maryland, it was like this team was not the same mentally or physically once they got in Maryland to play this game. Ohio State loses by 15 points. 1-5. This team that just beat Illinois, a team that's at the top of the Big Ten standings, a team that just beat Indiana, who's one of the better defensive teams in the conference and one of the better teams in the country, you go to Maryland and get worked. You go to Maryland and you let some mental things like possibly affect your play on the court. You let things that don't make absolutely any sense once you're on the court in that 40 minutes of regulation happen, and now you're about to watch other people move ahead of you in the AP poll. You have to watch people question you and what is going on and ask questions about your performance and maybe ask you things in post-game press conferences or maybe press conferences before games. What's wrong with this team? Because Ohio State lost by 15 points, and that wasn't like the biggest thing. Like the loss, okay, if it was a 2 or 3 point loss, it would have been okay. Like, it would have sucked, but it would have been something that may have been a little bit more like Maryland had better plays down the stretch. No, Maryland was a team that was ready to play. Maryland was a team that came out firing. Maryland was a team that took advantage of Zed Key not being on the court. Maryland was a team that took advantage of sometimes E.J. Liddell playing the 5 on the court. Maryland was a team that was ready for whatever Ohio State put on the court, and their energy, their effort, their level of anticipation was a whole lot better. Oh, there were some more bad entry passes in this game. There were some telegraph passes that Maryland easily picked off, took the other way for 2 points. There were a lot of things here that didn't make much sense. What did make much sense, though, to me was Fats Russell went off. 27 points, 6 of 10 from downtown. He was 9-19 overall shooting from the field, but him, Eric Ayala, were a two-headed monster that Ohio State didn't have any answer for. Eric Ayala, 23 points on 8 of 17 shooting from the field, 2 of 5 from downtown, and Ayala hit all 5 of his free throws. The scoring for Ohio State was very interesting and very odd. In the first half, Kyle Young and Cedric Russell had 14 points. They had half of Ohio State points in the first half. In the first half, Liddell and Branham combined for 11 points. The other 3 points that were left over, those came from Jamari Wheeler. That was a 3. Scoring was weird. Scoring was odd. Ohio State had 4 guys in double figures, But I'm still wondering, how is it that you're going to go on the road and play a game that you think you should win, and then all of a sudden, nobody on Ohio State has 20 points or 22 points. They don't have two guys over 15 points. I get the scoring. Branham 13, Liddell 11, Wheeler 11, Russell 12. I get all of that. But defensively, things were so bad. So bad. Another puzzling thing about this team, yeah, they shot 36% from the field. That was testament to Maryland's defense. But also, Ohio State shot 8 of 28 from downtown, a whopping 29%. A team that has struggled to shoot the ball from downtown consistently continues to shoot the ball from downtown consistently, and they consistently don't make those shots that they have consistently not made. Very confusing, very odd. There were too many offensive rebounds that Maryland got that were received by very little opposition or attempt from Ohio State to get the offensive rebound. This team's energy, this team's effort was poor, absolutely pathetic. And I am sitting here wondering what's going to happen over the next week, because Ohio State has a game tomorrow against Nebraska, a rescheduled game from earlier in the year. They have a game Thursday against Michigan State. Luckily, that is at home, but it still is Tom Izzo, and this is Tom Izzo's time of year. Tom Izzo normally owns the march, and he runs right through to the Final Four every now and then. And then you have the final game of the regular season against the team up north. No Juwan Howard, not at all. But it is your rival, and you don't want to end your regular season with a loss, because that win could honestly propel you to have a double bye in the Big Ten Conference Tournament, which I think you need. With the way that you have played lately, I think all the rest you can get is needed. But nobody. I don't need to go through any more stats. I don't need to go through any more numbers. This team is confusing. This team is consistently inconsistent. Yeah, they'll raise your level of play up against certain people, but then also they will play right at that level of a lesser opponent, or maybe even lower than a lesser opponent, because maybe they just don't want to put the energy and effort out there. Yes, in the radio show Chris Holtman does on Mondays, he said that players looked a little tired. Players looked a little fatigued. But as I said with Mike Cagley from IlliniGuys.com, you got to figure it out. Your energy, your effort, whatever it is, you just got to figure it out. In Ohio State right now, they didn't figure it out on Sunday. Luckily, there are more games to play where they can figure it out. But honestly, I don't think they will. If you are watching us on the YouTube, I want to say thank you very much for that. The numbers keep going up, and I want to say thank you for the growth. Hit that subscribe button. Has some great things coming with you and for you once we hit over the 1,000 subscription mark. So go ahead, hit that subscription button on the YouTube, hit that bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. Then also make sure you hit like on this video and every other video on the Locked On Buckeyes podcast YouTube channel. Comments, keep them coming. I love them, and you guys are great at filling in the comment section in every single video. JJ. I'm sure you're a nice guy. There's a good chance you come from a good family. But there are certain times, no matter if you're a good guy, your upbringing, anything, there are things that come to your head, and you should think, should I say this or should I not say it? Something came to your head, and you said it in an interview. And it's something that I think should have been kept to yourself. In a recent interview with Wolverines Digest, a part of Sports Illustrated, JJ McCarthy, Andrew Anthony, and Donovan Edwards were talking about the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. That was not the only topic, but it was one of many topics that were hit during this interview. And JJ McCarthy had some interesting things to say. There's some truth to what he said, but something he said already made it back to the Woody, and it has become bulletin board material. I'm going to read you a couple quotes from McCarthy. You might agree with some things he said, but some things might get under your skin. Quote, "For me, that rivalry is very personal, and I won't dive too deep into that. That was just one of those games where you definitely want to win it a lot more than the other ones. Of course, you want to win every game the way that you want to win every game, But that one was super, super nice to win, end quote. I'm not going to disagree with that. Like, I literally get it. Like, saying that one was super, super nice to win, knowing it's your first time in that rivalry game, there was almost a fight at halftime, and you may have been one barking and talking trash back and forth. I get it. That one was super nice to win because it's the biggest game of the year, and you won the game. I completely agree with that for you, it was super nice to win. But he didn't stop there. Listen to what else he had to say. Quote, for us, the whole 10-year stretch of us not winning, that's all we know is beating Ohio State right now. So we're going to keep that going, end quote. One, that's true. All he knows is beating Ohio State as a Michigan Wolverine. And when he says we, I'm going to go out and take a leap, take some liberty to say he's speaking for Andrew Anthony and Donovan Edwards because they were freshmen last year, all three of them, and those other two gentlemen are there with him in the interview. So he's not speaking for the entire team, but speaking for him and the other two gentlemen that are in this interview with him. So I get it. For you and your teammates, the two other teammates that are there, that is all you know. But what about the guys that have been there for 2 years or 3 years? Not so much 2 years because Michigan dodged the game in 2020. What about the guys that have been there for 3 years or 4 years or 5 years or 6 years, or maybe there might be a seventh-year player that's on the team? They don't only know beating Ohio State. There's a select few people on the Michigan Wolverines football team that only know beating Ohio State. That's it. So I get it. I completely understand what you're saying here, sir, but let's keep it in totality. You guys won 1 year. 1 game. Let's not forget, before you got there, that Michigan dodged the game in 2020. Now, some of you might say, Jay, the COVID was there. The COVID was a problem, and the COVID was what caused the cancellation. Let's keep it correct. The COVID, a virus, didn't cause nobody to cancel a game. That was something that was due to a response to the COVID, and the Wolverines, due to the way that they responded to the COVID, they canceled the game. You could have looked out there and seen LSU and people from the South, Big 12. They had less scholarship players than numerous Big Ten teams did eligible to play in 2020, and they were still rolling out there and playing the games. Now, should they have gone out there and done that? Should they have not? That's to be determined. I'm not here to discuss that right now, but there were numerous teams out there that were still playing with the players that they could play with. Michigan? No. I still think that they should have played the game. They could have played the game, but the timing of it, the game not being played, sure seemed like it was a dodging because Michigan was not a good football team in the year 2020. Now go back to last year or this past year, 2021, they played better. They had improvements, and I got to give it to Jim Harbaugh. They did a whole lot better in 2021, and they improved and played in a way that I did not expect them to play. But Mr. McCarthy, you know enough about football. You know enough about this rivalry. You know enough about Ohio State. You know enough about what has happened over the past 10 years. Let's go back 15 years. Let's go back 20 years. Let's just keep it in context. Michigan ain't really done nothing against Ohio State. So one win actually doesn't mean much to a lot of people because the track record of Michigan is we might win 1 year. Boy, there's a good chance we're going to lose the next 4 or 5 years in a row because Ohio State is just that dude. I like how McCarthy is confident. I'm not going to knock everything that he said. I like that he is confident. But, sir, you're the backup. You ain't even on the field all the time. You're a guy that sometimes fans will say, put McCarthy in, but then he gets on the field and there's an error, there's a fumble, there's an interception. It's like, McCarthy, get on the bench, put McNamara back in because McNamara is the better conductor and orchestrator of this Michigan offense. He's also the better quarterback, in my opinion, between the two, which is why he is the starting quarterback in Ann Arbor. There's a reason why McCarthy is a backup, and there's a reason why right now, as a backup, you can say certain things you probably shouldn't say. Also, people that aren't in leadership, people that aren't calling the shots, they do tend to run their mouth a little bit more than the person that is calling the shots because they have more freedom. They don't have to answer to the things that are being said, the play on the field or the rules that are being put in place because they are not the leader. And I remember I was at a basketball game a few years ago. It was Kyle Guy. You may remember this Kyle Guy, former Virginia Cavalier. He was the 2019, I believe, most outstanding player in the NCAA tournament. Virginia won the national championship. It was one of his last games in high school, and I was sitting next to an assistant coach at my former high school, and he was talking about how he, as an assistant coach, will sit next to the head coach and talk trash to the ref, knowing that the ref is not going to look at him, the ref's going to look at the head coach, so he has the freedom and the liberty to go ahead and run his mouth a little bit and talk some trash to the ref because he can do that. The ref's not going to look at him. The ref's going to look at the head coach because the head coach is in charge. This is the very first thing that came to my mind when I heard what JJ McCarthy said about this rivalry. Now, just like that assistant coach, I'm sure there are certain things he said that had truth to it. But should he have been running his mouth? Absolutely not. JJ McCarthy, should he be making statements like this, even though the only year you own the team, you make that statement, you win the game. So, yes, all you know as a Wolverine is that you beat Ohio State. But should he be the one in the moment to make a statement like this? Probably not. But he did provide bulletin board material. He did provide something for Ohio State that I do think that Ohio State will utilize right now to prepare for the game next year. It's February 28th. The game is not going to be played until the Saturday after Thanksgiving. But you know what? You prepare now for that game in the fall. And if there's bulletin board material you could get now that can sustain you all through the offseason going into that game, you use it. JJ McCarthy, thank you. The players, thank you. I'm sure the coaches, thank you. Because you just added fuel to the fire. And I cannot wait till the Wolverines come to the shoe in the fall. So I have been very passive on this next little topic on purpose. I've been a Chris Holtman believer. I even tried to not overlook the Oral Roberts loss in the performance by Ohio State, but I've really tried to take things and maybe to a fault to just me being a person and really being a big fan of Chris Holtman. I tried my best to not go down this road and say, Chris Holtman, you're the problem. Or is Chris Holtman the problem? I tried my best not to. But there comes a time when you have to analyze things properly. You have to realize that maybe things that are happening on the court are a result of things that have happened or decisions that have been made by the head coach. And the next thing you know, you can't go any further than any player than to look at the person that is calling the shots. I am a person that ever likes to call for someone's job. Granted, these men and women that are in these positions of leadership in sports and head coaches at the collegiate level, they'll probably get another job. And financially, they'll be fine. And so for their financials are one thing. Being able to get another job quickly, that's one thing. But also, I never want to be someone that's going to call for someone's job because I have been fired before, and I know the feeling that I had when I got fired from my job. It was in 2017, shortly after Alabama Clemson national championship game. Very well. So I'm not going to call for the man's job, but I do think Chris Holtman is one we need to look at and analyze properly and take it the way that it needs to be. This team all year long, going into last season sometimes, their energy and effort has been poor. I can start right there. I don't need to go X's and O's. I don't need to go to recruiting. I don't need to go anywhere. Let's go to the very elementary thing that you do when you're playing a sport. Bring your energy, bring your effort the entire time you're on the court or field that you're playing. That's number one. A toddler knows that. Well, a youngster knows that. A little 6-7-year-old junior is playing basketball for the first time. What does Pops tell him? Hey, bro, or hey, boy, you better go out there and play hard. You know how you beat me up at home in the basement? Yeah, go out there. Don't beat these kids up literally, but go out there and use all of your energy. And Pops knows if Junior uses his energy now, Pops could go home and relax a little bit because Junior has no energy. But this team consistently, there were times that the energy and effort has been poor. We can just go back to the game that we watched just a day ago. Ohio State's offense, sometimes it flows well, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes players move, sometimes players stand around. And the flow is sometimes not consistent. This is just a consistently inconsistent basketball team. When you look at the defensive side of the ball, defensive rotations have been bad all year long. All year long. I can't sugarcoat it and say, oh, well, they'll be fine. No, defensive rotations have been poor for a long time. Now, they have improved, don't get me wrong, But is it a byproduct of just these players are inconsistent? Or has Chris Holtman consistently not put the proper players on this roster for this team to make a deep tournament run? Yes, I don't think Ohio State will get out of the first weekend of the tournament. They might win the first round, but they will not get out of the second round. I am a believer of that. They're going to get into the tournament. They'll probably be a 4 through 6 seed in the tournament, depending on how they finish the rest of the season. But I don't think that that's going to happen because of the players on this team. Who is responsible for putting a roster together and constructing a roster for the players at Ohio State? Chris Holtman. Now, granted, you don't have Justice Suing. You don't have Seth Towns. Last year, you lost Abel Porter. You lost CJ Walker throughout portions of it, and last year's team did phenomenal when CJ Walker was off the court, and then even did better once he was on the court once he came back from his injury. And so this is all on Chris Holtman. I've talked about how the lack of a big man may hurt Ohio State down the road, or even currently in the Big Ten Conference, regular season that Ohio State has had. Yeah, Zed Key is cool, but he's not your big man that you want in college basketball to go and have a deep tournament run and to win a national championship. I get Ohio State is not a basketball school. However, there is an expectation for your basketball team to at least play basketball, at least play hard, at least be someone that is going to go on the court and do your job. Chris Holtman put the team together. We can look at fundamentally, do they have a lead guard, a point guard, or someone that's running the show that can be the guy to orchestrate and also play at an elite level consistently to make a deep tournament run? No. Do they have do they have decent or above average post play? No. Do they have a guy that's a leader? Yes, an EJ Liddell, but who else is there that's a leader? Malachi Branham. Do they consistently know who is a leader in the alpha on the court? No, they don't. Whose responsibility is this? Chris Holtman. Now, with the Branham and Liddell dynamic, that's going to come. That just may be something that Branham is taking over. Holtman may say, hey, man, if you got a lane, take it. Don't pass the ball to Liddell, even though many people believe you need to run through Liddell consistently and just run your offense through him. This might be on Chris Holtman. I don't need to go through his record versus top 10 opponents versus top 25 opponents, a record versus the number one ranked teams that he has beaten in his tenure at Ohio State. This is year number 5. The luxury for Chris Holtman is Ohio State is not a basketball school. However, the non-luxury for Chris Holtman is that there is going to be a time that Gene Smith, the fan base, the administration there, the coaching staff there, and the players might not be satisfied with what's happening currently or what has happened during his tenure at The Ohio State University. This is February 28th. The Big Ten Conference tournament starts next week, and then the following week is the start of the NC2A tournament. Chris Holtman has a lot of time to change the narrative, to change what people think, what people say about this basketball team and him as a head coach at The Ohio State University. I don't know if now is the time for a change. However, it's weird watching the same thing happen over and over and over with this basketball team. Yeah, the players are out there, but maybe it's time to analyze and maybe have a come-to-Jesus meeting, Gene Smith, Chris Holtman, and say, look, something's got to give. We got to change things up to win more games and not lose by 15 points to an unranked team, or we might have to change some things up as far as who is calling the shots for this basketball team. Guys, fun Monday. Great way to start the week. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at jsteven07. If you're a business owner, you would like to talk to me about advertising your podcast, your business here on this podcast, send your email to jstevens317@gmail.com. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen of every single day. Now is the perfect time to make your second listen of the day Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It's free and available wherever you get your fine podcast. For this Monday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, I am your host, Jay Stevens. Have a great day.